Good morning. It is July 9th, 2014, 9 o'clock, and we're in the Senator Hearing Room in Courthouse Square for our weekly Board of Commissioners meeting. We start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, so please join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, we've been through the 4th of July. We start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Now we got to get back to work. We start our meetings with public comment, and we have people today, and that's special. 3 people have signed up, so if you'd just come up, I guess, to this microphone here, state your name and address, and then go ahead. And the first is Diane Young. Yes, if you'd pull the microphone right up, thank you.
All right. Hi. Good morning. I'm Diane Young. I'm the founder and director of a small rescue organization in Salem called Salem Dogs. I specialize in special needs dogs. I am usually contacted by Marion County Dog Shelter, Willamette Humane Society, or Willamette Hospice, or in some cases some individual owners who can no longer take care of their dogs, ask them to, or they ask me to help them find a new home for this dog. I'm just here to answer any questions about the Senate bill as it reflects on small animal rescue groups. I am not a 501c3 organization, just one person. Trying to help out the special needs dogs and trying to help out, especially Marion County, when they have some dogs that do not show well at the shelter. So that's about it.
I appreciate you being here, Diane. I do actually have a question. So does this affect you directly, and is there anything you find oppressive or good or bad about the whole proposal?
I think if the proposal was designed to prevent future issues like the Willamette Animal Rescue debacle, I think that something has to be done, and I think this is probably a good start. I don't take issue with any of the licensing or the fees required. I think the idea is to identify these people who might get involved the way Miss English did, and be able to hold them accountable to some guidelines at some point. And hopefully, we're all doing this for the right reasons, and we can make sure that other people who get involved in the rescue business do the same. I personally know of no other rescue organization in our area, and I do work with all of them. I know of no other rescue organization that is not strictly above board, very careful with their documentation, and very careful where they place their animals, and extremely careful with the care of their animals while they're with them. That one particular case was the only one that I knew about, and I knew about it a couple of years ago. That's about it. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Go
I
ahead. Just had one question. So you said you're not a 501c3. So do you accept contributions?
I don't solicit contributions. I pay for my care for my animals through pet sitting business that I have, and also making and selling craft items and having them at some of the local events in the area, Salem Saturday Market and that type of thing.
Right. So I'm thinking that doesn't fall within the definition, Bruce, right? Of 10 or more and doesn't accept contributions?
Accepts or solicits. What I don't know is.
You have to talk in a microphone, Bruce. You cannot talk where you're talking.
He knew, but...
All right.
My apologies, Mr. Chair, Commissioner. Bruce Armstrong, Assistant Legal Counsel with Marion County. The law, the state statute, and our code states that the requirement is 10 or more animals and accepts or solicits. And I heard that you do not.
I do not solicit,
but if you accept, then
Yes.
she would.
So
qualify.
you have accepted contributions then?
Contributions, for example, Salem Hospital is going to give me a couple of pallets of old blankets to use for the animals,
Okay.
that type of thing.
So it can be goods and not just cash? Is that?
I'm trying to remember the exact terms, but yes, it would be of any kind, I
Okay,
believe.
all right. Just trying to figure out if it meets the definition.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
And thanks for the things you do.
Mhm.
And excuse me, did you have something?
She just asked it.
Got it.
Okay.
All right, Gene Pfeiffer.
Question.
Good morning. All the commissioners look good this morning. I'm here, and two of you are smiling.
Well,
Well, it's almost a smile.
he's the only one who looks good, really, but,
No, he's really not smiling.
all right.
The topic is about the parking structure on the east side of the courthouse. And if I understand it correctly, John, that is scheduled for a design bid process? Is that true?
Mr. Chair, that's correct.
Okay. So I'm here with my citizen's hat on this morning, and I'm sure you'd rather hear me say it beforehand rather than after the fact. So if I understand correctly, in November, Dalkey Construction gave John, your department, a letter that proposed that it would be a good thing to do a design build proposal on that project rather than a design bid. And the differences are, is what I'll lay it out for you, and I'll do it rather quickly. If you which I understand to borrow $10,000 from the bank, and if you do it where you tear the facility down and then build back up, with the $10 million, you only would be able to go back up 2 new floors. And so if you did a design build and remediated the bottom 3 floors, which is very possible. I've looked at it myself. I actually entertained the issue a couple of years ago. It's possible to do that without tearing the building apart. So if you did that and then you could go up 3 levels, so you'd have a total of 6 floors. And those 6 floors could be done in that process for under $9 million. Whereas if you tried to do the same in the method of design bid, you're going to have a cost of more in the area of $13.5 million. So you have a spread there of about $4.5 million in the process, and also something that I think that's going to raise the eyes of the public more so than if you fixed it and proceeded in that method. Another thing interesting is the new spaces approved or by the $10 million figure. There's 110 new spaces that would be generated from that process. That would cost about $90,000 a space. Whereas if you did it the process where you're adding 3 new levels, and that's about 165 new spaces, the cost of those spaces is about $54,000 a piece. So it's much better to remediate the building and then add the 3 new floors. It's a much better system, better savings. I think it's going to look better on the work that you folks do, and save some money for the county as well. And unfortunately, if the only amount of money that's borrowed is $10 million, it doesn't take care of providing as much within the $10 million if you did in the process that I'm advocating. And I will make a comment on the streets. Someone who's active with the downtown retail said that they were acclaiming the effort of the county to create new spaces that would eliminate or take the pressure off of downtown shopping, with, I understand, there's about 1,200 visitors to the courthouse a day or something like that. So they're saying that, hey, this is a good thing, but I'm coming here to propose to you that it could be done for a lot less money, have a lot less black look, I guess you'd say, in the newspaper or something, that we're doing something one way when we could be doing it more economic way, and to the benefit of the public and to the county.
All right. Thank you.
Any questions?
No.
Thanks. Are you proceeding with doing the design, or is that already in the process?
This is just public comment, Gene. We don't know where we're going to go. It's way early in the process, but we certainly have your comments. And
Very good. Thank you. Good morning.
Elan Lambert. And Elan, I'm sorry I didn't know. I'm saying it wrong too. I'm sorry I didn't know who you were, but I do now, and I certainly hear of a lot of good things you did.
Thank
do.
you.
Go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Alon Lambert, and I'm this morning wearing the hat of the chair of the Marion County Veterans Task Force. And last year, we did, in conjunction with the Oregon National Guard, did what was called Joining Community Forces a program, and there was a community covenant that was signed. So this year, we're actually doing a program again at the county fair, and the committee wanted to have some kind of certificate to pass out, and Sheriff Myers and Walt Beglar are both part of that committee. They both said that they would sign a certificate if we did it, and so then I asked Commissioner Carlson if we could do something, and she suggested I come here. So what I did was I actually took the covenant from last year, put it on a certificate. Do you want me to read it, or do I need to? Okay.
Please.
It says, Marion County salutes our veteran service members and their families. We recognize the commitment and sacrifices that service members, past and present, and their families make for our community. The strength of service members, past and present, comes from their families. Service members and veterans' families must be supported by the community. The strength of the community comes from each and every resident. We are committed to building partnerships that support the strength, resilience, and readiness of service members and their families, supporting families through programs and volunteer efforts to mitigate the impact of deployments, remembering and honoring all service members, past and present, who have served and sacrificed on our behalf. We recognize and remember the lifelong sacrifice and enduring commitment made by our prisoners of war, missing in action, and their families by keeping them in our thoughts and waiting for them to come back home. Thank you for your service, and it would be signed by Commissioners Sheriff Myers and then District Attorney Walt Beglar. I don't know how many people know, you probably do know, that there's been over 1,200 Oregon troops deployed in the last 2 weeks to Afghanistan. And so we are still at war. And so we want to be able to give these out at the fair, in the booth that we have in the Heroes and Heritage area, to recognize the service of veteran service members and their families. So I'll
All right.
mention if we could sign it.
Are there questions, comments? Go ahead.
No, we just have our signed copies
Oh.
here right now, so we can give them to you.
We should have had a full presentation, all the activities. Perhaps we can set that up sometime in the future.
Right. And thank you very much, Ellen, for organizing all of this.
Send
And
that one to Kim.
And Commissioner Carlson, you are going to sing the national anthem.
I didn't know if you still wanted me
Yes.
to. You do? Okay. Got the pitch pipe in my purse, so sure I will do
I
that.
usually got, I thought I got your singing jobs for you. This is great. Yeah, it worked.
I'm done with your singing job.
All right, next we have our consent calendar, and I'm hearing it's Commissioner Cameron's turn.
Oh, Mr. Chair, I'll move the consent calendar. First on the consent calendar is under Finance, approve a 7-year lease with Pioneer Trust Bank for $633,664.49 for leased office space for the Health Department at 3876 Beverly Avenue Northeast. Approve a termination of leased space with Pioneer Bank located at 3886 Beverly Avenue Northeast, Salem, effective upon possession of the new space at 3876 Beverly Avenue Northeast, Salem. Approve a 10-year lease with Corey Development for $1,463,364 for leased space for the Health Department at 967-986 North Pacific Highway in Woodburn, Oregon. Under the Health Department, approve amendment number 1, adding $189,752 to the contract with the Oregon Health Authority to provide HIV medical case management services and extend the contract through June 30th, 2016. Approve an intergovernmental agreement with the Department of Human Services Child Welfare Program to provide $564,980 for the transitional treatment services through June 30th, 2015. Approve amendment number 7 to add $613,000 to the contract with Resource Connections of Oregon to allow for continued services and extend until September 30th, 2015. Under the Juvenile Department, approve renewal of a contract with North Valley Medical Staffing to provide nursing services in the amount of $240,000 to the Juvenile Department. Under the Department of Public Works, approve an order reappointing Jackie Keller McCormick, Robert Dyke, and Dan Goffin to the Weed Advisory Committee for the term ending June 30th, 2018. Schedule adoption of administrative ordinance for July 16th, 2014, granting zone change ZC 14-001, Phoenix Investment Group, Inc., clerk's file number 5686. And finally, under tax collector, approve an order authorizing property tax refund to Salem Kaiser Community Development Corp. In the amount of $16,557.70.
I will second the motion.
It's moved and seconded to approve our consent calendar this morning. Any further discussion? I hear none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Under action, we have 4 items, 2 related. The first, under community service, consider adoption of an ordinance amending the Marion County Code, Chapter 6.05, relating to animal rescue entities by emergency procedure. Bruce Armstrong, Tammy Getz, Sonia Pulvers. So, good morning again.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mr. Chair, I'm Tamara Getch, Director of Community Services.
I'm Sonia Pulvers, Office Manager at the Dog Shelter.
And again, Bruce Armstrong, I'm an Assistant Legal Counsel with Marion County. The first item before you, it relates to animal rescue entities, as we were just talking about a moment ago. Last week, the board approved an ordinance amending our code provisions to lay out a registration and inspection process for animal rescue entities. And that was done by emergency procedure, so the code provisions are in effect. One of the, a portion of that code language stated that certificates of registration, the initial certificate of registration is good for 1 year and renewals are good for 2 years. After that ordinance was approved, there was a discussion about the fee structure, and we're here before you today with a proposal for options of 1, 2, or 3 year certificates of registration. So given that, we need to do a little cleanup and remove the language stating that certificates of registration are good for 1 year and renewals are good for 2 years. And what's proposed is to add language that the board shall establish fees and effective terms for certificates of registration and renewed certificates by board order. And so that allows for more efficiently updating things in the future, and it's a more efficient way to handle things. So the proposal is to amend 6.05 300A2 with a new language that allows for designation of fees for certificates of registration by board order. And it is proposed that that be done by emergency procedure since this ordinance and the code is in effect.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, Bruce, would you just read that language since it shows so short so the listening audience will know what it says?
Subsection 2, so again, Marion County Code 6.05 300A2 the proposal is to amend it to read as follows. The animal rescue entity shall pay a reasonable fee as established by the Marion County Board of Commissioners for a certificate of registration to provide for the actual cost of regulating animal rescue entities. The board shall establish fees and the effective terms for certificates of registration and renewed certificates by board order.
Thank you. If I could just add that number one is based on, first of all, thank you for coming forward with this. I think it's much better to have in an ordinance this kind of general language that then allows us to kind of work with the fee schedule and that type of thing in the next item that we'll have. Secondly, as we discussed last time at this table and as we've discussed in between, we're not quite sure what the actual cost is going to be, but my hunch would be that the reason that it says that it's providing for the actual cost of regulating the entities means that we're not making a profit on this. I mean, all dollars will be applied towards the actual cost of running the program. So given that, I think this is a real good amendment to have for it, and will pave the way then for us to go to the next item, which would be to actually establish the fee. So,
Go ahead, Commissioner.
So entertain a motion for the, Mr. Chair, I'll move, consider the adoption of the ordinance amending the Marion County Code, Chapter 6.05, relating to animal rescue entities by emergency procedure.
So it'd be read by title twice.
you need to move Chair reads by title.
And that the chair would read the title twice. All
right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, moved and seconded to have the chair read this by title only twice. For the discussion, it's more for the body of it. I want to spend just a moment, because that word actual stuck to me here as we're looking at it. And I think we know that we, by the rates of the fees we were proposing, wouldn't cover all the costs, and I don't want to be trapping ourselves into having to raise fees so high that nobody wants to comply. Is there any issue with that, or am I making it up?
You're asking about removing the word actual?
Uh-huh.
We're entitled to establish fees to meet our costs. I think the intent is that we don't exceed, as Commissioner
Right.
Carlson
All
was
right, if
saying.
it's not exceed, then fine. I just
Right.
didn't want to be forced into having, maybe it's 10,000, we got 10 people. Well, that's two owners.
It's
Okay.
a portion of the actual
Fine.
cost is what
Well, that would be more accurate, but, okay. So the motion was to read by title twice. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion passes, and I'll do that now. This is an ordinance revising and updating the Marion County Code, Chapter 6.05, relating to dog control and declaring an emergency. And in the second reading, an ordinance revising and updating the Marion County Code, Chapter 605, relating to dog control and declaring an emergency. And now a motion to approve the ordinance.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we approve the adoption of an ordinance amending the Marion County Code, Chapter 6.05, relating to animal rescue entities by emergency.
I'll second it.
All right, it's moved and second to approve ordinance, Marion County Code, Chapter 6.05. Further discussion? Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I just want to put in for the record, obviously, this is something that we had a discussion about last week, and we are being forced by the state to implement this fee upon people in dog rescue organizations and or at the risk of having a writ brought on.
Kind of following up on that, I was opposed to it, I still am opposed. This particular is a clarifying effort at something already adopted, so I'm not going to oppose this. Anything else? All right, so call a question. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, and opposed, none. Motion passes, ordinance is approved. The next item is also related to this, of course, and this is where we consider approval of an order that establishes the fees for this animal rescue entity and a term length of registration certificates for Marion County Dog Certificate Services. So I don't know if there's anything more you want to add, Bruce, but go ahead, or anyone if you do.
I just wanted just to add comment that part of what is being proposed is trying to help this align more efficiently with the dog shelter's current practice for collecting fees. And so in that light, we have looked at a discounted rate for those animal rescue entities that are choosing to register beyond just a year, so up to 1 to 3 years, and then there would be a discount for those registration fees across across those years. However, it's an option of the owner of the rescue.
And so what is proposed is that the fee be set for that it would be at the option of the entity or the individual could choose between a 1, 2, or 3 year certificate of registration. The proposed fee for a 1 year would be $75. Excuse me, a 2 year would be $125, and a 3 year certificate of registration would be $175.
All right, comments,
So,
questions?
Mr. Chair, just wanted to say, I think we did have some conversations, several conversations as a board and individually since last week. This seems to me to be a good place to start and try it out. Having the first year certificate be less than $100 was something that I was concerned about, wanting to make sure that, again, we're not we're not making it such a high fee that people don't want to come forward and register, because the whole idea is we want to know who they are and where they are and get them involved in the program. And then having the discount for 2 and 3 years, I think, is a good incentive as well. So I am supportive and would make a motion that we approve the order that establishes the fee schedule for animal rescue entity registrations.
Mr. Chair, I'll second the motion.
All right, it's moved and seconded to establish the animal rescue fees and the term length of the certificates. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes, and thank you for all your work on that, and good luck.
Thank you.
And I'll be bringing a year from now a chance to rescind the whole thing. That's all. Public Works. We've been putting this off for a while, and I don't know why. It's a good one. Consider adoption of an ordinance concurring in amendment to the Salem-Kaiser urban growth boundary for a portion of Kaiser Rapids Park. Brandon Reich is here. Go ahead, Brandon.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Brandon Reich, staff representing the Planning Division of Public Works. The City of Kaiser is proposing an urban growth boundary expansion of approximately 58 acres for parkland at Kaiser Rapids Park. On June 11th and June 25th, the board held a hearing on the matter. After reviewing the testimony in the record, the board voted unanimously to concur with the amendments to the Kaiser Comprehensive Plan and urban growth boundary. Before you today is an ordinance reflecting that decision. Properties added to the urban growth boundary would be redesignated from a Marion County rural plan designation of primary agriculture to a city urban plan designation of public, and the zoning would change from a rural exclusive farm use zone to an urban public zone. Because of the city's timeline in this process and the need for zoning certainty moving forward, staff recommends the ordinance before the board be adopted by emergency procedure so that the city may proceed with its ordinance adoption. With that, I'm available for any questions you may have.
Are there any?
Comment.
Sure.
So this is really a great opportunity for us to assist the City of Kaiser in moving forward with Kaiser Rapids Park. I just wanted to say, if people have not been there, you ought to go. It's got a wonderful amphitheater. They do concerts. They have a dog park that other areas are trying to emulate. And now we're going to have out there a destination playground. We're calling it the Big Toy. At one point it was called the Really Big Toy, but they took out the really. But it's going to be just a state-of-the-art, very large, comprehensive playground that's designed by several thousand children out in Kaiser, and is going to be built by the community with a lot of donated materials, donated volunteer time and fundraising and grants that we're working on right now. So this is one piece of the puzzle in terms of moving forward with that to make sure that the property is zoned appropriately. There's still some question about where in the park the playground will be. this is one of the options. There's another option, but once this is in, then they can move forward and make that decision. We were going to have this community build in September of this year. It's now been moved back, I believe, to June of next year. So originally, this was kind of an urgent concern, but given that we've got a little breathing room now, it's good that we're doing this now, but it's not quite the emergency that it was earlier. And then also just wanted to mention that I saw the paperwork from Salem go through our routing file. So they have also done the same thing that we are doing now to put their stamp of approval on this UGB expansion and the rezoning of the parkland. So thank you, Brandon, for your help and getting this moving forward for us.
All right.
Good. Thank you.
If you want to go ahead, and this will be something to be read twice too,
So you want me to do this?
if you would.
All right. Mr. Chair, I would move that we read this ordinance by title, that the chair read this ordinance by title only twice.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right, it's been seconded to read this ordinance by title only twice. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. The motion passes, and I'll do that now. In the matter of an ordinance amending the Marion County Comprehensive Plan by concurring in an urban growth boundary amendment to the Salem-Kaiser urban growth boundary for parkland at Kaiser Rapids Park, coordinating a population forecast for Kaiser of 48,089 persons for the year 2032, applying a Marion County zoning classification to the land added to the urban growth boundary, and declaring an emergency. The second reading. In the matter of an ordinance amending the Marion County Comprehensive Plan by concurring in an urban growth boundary amendment to the Salem-Kaiser urban growth boundary for parkland at Kaiser Rapids Park, coordinating a population forecast for Kaiser of 48,089 persons for the year 2032, applying a Marion County zoning classification to the land added to the urban growth boundary, and declaring an emergency. And now for adoption.
And then, Mr. Chair, I would move that the board approve this ordinance, as you've just read, concurring in the urban growth boundary amendment, coordinating the population forecast, and applying the Marion County zoning classification, and this is by emergency.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, it's moved and seconded to approve the ordinance that concurs in an amendment to Salem-Kaiser urban growth boundary for a portion of Kaiser Rapids Park. Anything else? All right, all in favor then say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes. So Brandon, thanks to you and all who have worked on this, and
Thank you.
hope it fulfills its goals. I did get off order. I write K and J, and they don't seem to register, but we'll sort it out for terms of making the motion. I knew something was wrong. All right, and it is 9:30, so this works out nicely. Our last item this morning is a public hearing to consider amending the noise code provisions. Bruce Armstrong, Joe Fenimore. I might just, the procedure we'll do under this public hearing, we'll start with a staff report, and then testimony of those that are in support, then testimony in opposition, some general comments, and then come back. We do ask if everyone that would like to speak is signed up. Is there anybody here that hasn't? Would you meet this paper down at the end then, and we'll start. All right, Bruce, Joe, would you like to begin?
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. For the record, this is Joe Fenimore. This item before you today is a public hearing to consider changes to the noise code. Under the code, certain sounds and sound levels are considered violations and subject to enforcement. However, the code contains an exemption that allows any level of noise in conjunction with the permitted commercial or industrial use. County staff has been receiving complaints at a nightclub, which is permitted commercial use within the Salem-Kaiser urban growth boundary, disturbing residents of an RV park and apartments on nearby properties. The disturbance cannot be addressed through enforcement because of the exemption. At a public meeting on May 12th, the board directed staff to provide options to consider to address the concerns of the residents. At a public meeting on June 16th, staff provided the board with options to consider, and the board directed staff to prepare an ordinance for it to consider at a regular session. The proposed ordinance would remove the exemption for commercial uses in unincorporated Marion County inside the Salem-Keizer urban growth boundary, and specifically identify a lawfully occupied recreational vehicle as a dwelling. The ordinance was scheduled for consideration at regular board session on June 25th. Prior to that session and during the public comment period, a request was made to the board that it conduct a public hearing on the matter. The board agreed and scheduled that hearing for today. And I'll let Bruce go over the details of the proposed changes. If you have any questions?
Any questions? No.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Bruce Armstrong, Assistant Legal Counsel. I would just add that the board did consider this matter also at a May 19th management update session and a June 16th management update session. And that's when these issues, or I should say prior to that, it was when these issues about the disturbing noise was brought to the board's attention. The language within our code actually states that it's in Marion County Code 8.45080H that the following sounds are permitted. It's essentially an exemption, but it states that sounds are permitted if they're made in conjunction with permitted industrial or commercial uses. And that's what we're dealing with here. If a noise arises from a legitimate commercial use, there is nothing that code enforcement can do to enforce our noise code in relation to that. So looking back, Marion County amended its code provisions, I believe back in 2008, and our code is a little bit, it has these different sections that apply depending on if it's outside of the UGB or inside the Salem-Keizer UGB. And what was done in 2008 was an attempt was made to bring our code provisions in line with the city of Salem's. But what has, after some investigation, after these complaints have been brought forth, it was noted that Salem does not have the same exemption for permitted commercial uses. So what is before the board today is actually quite narrow. It is simply removing that exemption that exists today, that's stating that commercial sounds made in conjunction with permitted commercial uses are permitted. So that would no longer be a part of our code. And again, that only applies within the Salem-Keizer UGB. And that is, the language that is before you is simply removing that exemption. No other change other than the reference to dwelling, the definition of dwelling units, including legally or lawfully occupied recreational vehicles. That is the only other change. I can get some other issues have been raised, and I don't know if you want me to get into those at this time, but maybe, or if you'd prefer that we take arguments in favor or against, and then I'd be happy to answer questions later on.
Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Bruce, does the change that you just spoke of bring us up to or equal to Salem's noise ordinance?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Commissioner, yes, this would bring Marion County's code provisions in line with the city of Salem's. Our codes are not identical, but they are very, very similar, virtually identical. And this would, with regard to this exemption, we would be in line within the Salem-Keizer UGB, yes.
Within the UGB. Outside the UGB, we're still different. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Did you have something?
Mr. Chair, just to tag on to that, and then I had another question. So are the decibel levels exactly the same between us and the city of Salem, or are they slightly different?
They are, if I remember correctly, they are the same.
Are they?
For the night periods. We have, and again, within the UGB, yes.
They're exactly the same within the UGB. Okay, I thought there was some.
We had some outside. We have some variation,
In
and
the
we have
rural-
that
in the rural
allowance
area.
for off-road vehicles or ATVs during the day. But no, inside the UGB, we have the same decibel levels.
All right, and then the question I was originally going to ask on the lawfully occupied recreational vehicle. I remember in the discussion that we had, Joe, you believed that lawfully occupied recreational vehicles would actually be included in kind of the general gist of the language, and we asked you, let's put it in specifically so that there's no question, and people aren't arguing about whether it's included or whether it's not. So could you remind us why you thought it was originally included anyway?
I believe that this section talks about a noise-sensitive use, and it says a dwelling includes a single-family dwelling, a mobile home, and then it says, and other similar types or other same types of uses. And we thought originally that you could do an interpretation that an occupied RV would fit that definition, and then we are asked by code enforcement to be more precise and actually put it in the code.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Then we'll begin with the public testimony. I should make note, we've had one written piece. It's from Linda 9 at 2596 Court Street Northeast, talking about the same issues, but and she's here, okay, but outside of the area we're talking about in the county, the urban growth boundary. So, if you would come up, I believe this microphone here, pull it close, state your name and address, and then go ahead and give your testimony, and we'll go down the list of those in support. Okay, the first is Todd Call.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
My name's Todd Call. I am the owner of Phoenix RV Park located at 4130 Silverton Road Northeast, Salem, Oregon. In 1997, I acquired this piece of land, formerly known as Oak Park RV Village. That was acquired in August of 97. In December of 97, I closed the park down and began a remodeling of the park and spent $2.7 million to upgrade the park to bring it to current standards as far as livability and appearance. Shortly after that, in 2001, we had our first encounter with what I'll call is a bunker buster to RVs, is music coming from the south property, known as, I'll call it the Wyant Building. I'm not sure of the address right now, but approximately in 2001, we made contacts with the owner of the building and with that particular nightclub that was in there, informing them that we were getting inundated on Thursday and Friday nights with music and Saturday nights, and it was disturbing our guests. Basically, that fell onto deaf ears, and we ended up filing a lawsuit against the owners of the restaurant and of the establishment. In 2004, 3 years after, there was no remedy at that time through the court system. The restaurant went out of business, and it was quiet at that time. Then in May of 2013, a new restaurant moved in lawfully. I support business, lawfully businesses being there. I encourage, it's great American business to grow and to thrive. However, immediately upon that restaurant, Remy's, I'll refer to as Remy's, Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights became, again, a bunker buster of bass music to our RV park, extending to a point where our southerly property line is 200 feet from the northern property, the building of the Wyant property. And Remy's is located approximately another 75 feet within that structure. We have been impacted by music over 1,200 feet to the front side of our park. And so at that time, we've made contact with the owners of Remy's. We've made contact with the Sheriff's Department. The Sheriff's Department was very responsive. They came out and investigated. Their hands are tied because we are in a commercial zone property, like they are in a commercial zone property, and having two like properties, they're unable to enforce any type of noise ordinance that you currently have. And therefore, I'm asking the commission and Marion County to adopt a noise ordinance that would allow the sheriffs to at least enforce a noise ordinance, to either have them turn their base down or be able to issue citations, to have some sort of enforcement of this. Again, this is an important thing for us. I acquired additional 2 acres just to the east of my property here recently. We're going to do another development in that section. And we have been severely impacted by the nightclub. We have residents, every weekend, basically, they have 3 days of no sleep. We also had an employee of there is a radio station, a Christian music station, that employed a talk show host that actually stayed in our RV park, and we put her in her RV back close to the club, and she made several comments that she cannot believe how loud it is on the weekends, and is there nothing you can do? And we said, well, we're trying everything we can. She made contact. We encouraged her to talk to the owner of the building, which the owner's son owns the radio station. Don Wyatt Jr. owns the radio station, and she made contact with him and says, there's nothing I can do. That's what my dad wants. So I just encouraging you to adopt a ordinance that will allow, or amend the current ordinance that will allow enforcement.
Go ahead.
I guess I'm on. So thank you, Mr. Call, for coming.
Yes.
So several things. One, I wanted to declare, and this is not a quasi-judicial hearing, this is a legislative hearing, so we're not under the same kinds of protocols that you would have in a land use hearing where you can't have ex parte contact and all of that type of thing. So I have been out to the Phoenix RV Park, and I did meet with you, and that's actually how I became aware of the issue. Now, I'm recalling, and I just want you to confirm this if maybe my recollection's incorrect, that you said as part of the impact that you had some people go online and talk about the noise or those noise concerns. Have you had any, like on Travel Advisor, what's the name of it?
RV
Anyways.
Trips, RV, it's called RV, it's a website that RVers use to post comments, and it's called, can't think of the name of one of my ladies that are here maybe recall it. It's a website that is used to post reviews.
Right. And so have you had negative reviews?
And yes,
because
we
of
have
that?
had several negative reviews on that site. We had one that basically was, you score on a 1 to 10 basis. We were a 3. They loved the park. It was beautiful. But the noise Saturday night was basically like, we will never come back because of the noise on Saturday night. And we've had other guests also post the same experiences, and it's usually Friday, Saturday nights. And we only have one opportunity when a guest comes in overnight. We have thousands of people every year that come through our park. We try not to put those overnighters back in that area, because if they have a bad experience, they're going to post or not recommend our park.
And then the other thing that I believe I recall you talking about was that you've actually had people that have left early because of the noise. Is that
correct.
True? So it's not just people are grunting through and enduring the noise. You've actually lost business because
that
of
is
the noise.
correct.
Okay. And then a study that you did, and I'm not sure if it was in conjunction with the lawsuit earlier or whatever about the noise level, that you said you spent quite a bit of money on the study. Can you describe for us that study?
Yes, we used a company out of Lake Oswego called Listening Acoustics, and it is a company that monitors sound levels, wave levels. They go to nightclubs throughout the city of Portland because Portland has a very stringent noise ordinance. And so we employed them to come down and take noise sampling at our park, at our fence line, and back into our park about 100 feet. And those samplings were taken. The most recent ones I did was taken in October of 2013.
Okay.
And they cost me $6,500. They were there for 2 weekends. Their sound samplings that they took weighted sound sampling during the day from, let's say, from 3 to 6 p.m. That gives them a base noise level. And then they took samples from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. and then from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. in the morning. These are on, the sound samples were taken on days the club was not in operation. Then they came back on the weekends, on Saturday and Sunday, Friday and Saturday nights, and took other samples of the noise levels. And after they took those samples, they did their analysis, and then they looked at the current Marion County code, and had we fallen into a non-like situation out of what they took for those samplings, 80% of the time they would have been in noise violation of the code if we were in a non-like situation. But being in a commercial zone, there's no way they could, there's no enforcement because of the sound sampling. There's no difference.
So if you had been a residential, like a neighborhood, and that
Correct.
level of noise, the ordinance would have applied.
Correct.
And then they would have been in violation.
Correct.
And so, and I'm trying to remember the decibel level. I'll give you a heads up, Joe, and maybe Sergeant Baldridge, I'm going to need you to come up too, maybe, and speak to this about what the decibel levels are, what they're required. But my recollection is that, and seeing the study, that the amounts were like over 80, I think,
Yes.
decibels. And
There's different weight. I wish I should have brought the acoustic company down there. There's different weights of measurements of music, and whether it's bass and, but yes, they did exceed 80 decibels and sometimes 90, 96 decibels. And there's different weights of music, and
Right.
so.
And I recognize you're not an expert,
Right.
but you were the one that
Right.
commissioned the study. And then the other part, just to give a heads up to, and Sergeant Baldridge, did you want to, is it okay if it
It's
comes up
fine,
now?
go
Or
ahead.
all right, that's fine.
We should have had it under staff anyway.
Right, yeah, the base levels too, my understanding is that it's not only the loudness of it, it's the depth of the bass and the intensity of the bass.
Correct.
Coming through, and decibel levels don't necessarily pick up that aspect of it.
Correct. And as one of a code enforcement officer from Marion County came out with the device to monitor the music at one time. And the device that they used was a very simple device that will not detect the bass levels to a point where bass is a movement of air, it's a movement of volume. And with the sound equipment that's used with listening acoustics is valued at $10,000 and $12,000 for the equipment. The unit that was used for Marion County is not a very sophisticated. It's a basic, can I hear it and listen to it? Where bass is a different level, and some of the listening devices will not pick up that level.
And then I do have one more question, but maybe we can, since this is on the same topic, have
Go ahead.
Bruce and Sergeant Baldridge. So Sergeant Baldridge, you're privy to that study, right, that we're talking about?
Yes.
So and you also probably, your officers were involved in the other reading that we did as a county. So can maybe you just clarify or confirm or not, or whatever. What
Certainly.
we're
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. And if you don't mind, I'm just going to introduce myself really quick. My name is Chris Baldridge. I'm a sergeant with the Sheriff's Office. I supervise our Community Resource Unit, who's in charge of our code enforcement officers. What I think is really so. I am not a decibel expert. The persons that the Phoenix RV Park hired certainly are. The equipment that we utilize is the equipment that we need to currently prosecute our noise ordinance in a court of law, and it meets our standard. There is no doubt that there is a dispute between Phoenix and Remy's nightclub, and there is no doubt that this noise exists. And I think that's where our impasse is at. The noise is loud. It is substantiated by our code enforcement officers, and it's substantiated by Phoenix RV Park and their noise study. In addition to that, it's been substantiated by numerous deputies who have gone and responded to neighborhood complaints about the bass noise that's going in the area, and it's you can hear it. I mean, this is for a lack of better words, it's not rocket science. You can stand out there, you can hear it, and I think that kind of what brings us to this impasse today.
And Bruce, I've got a question for you, and then I've got another question for both Sergeant Baldridge and Mr. Call. So our noise ordinance is based on decibel levels, as we just discussed here. The bass isn't necessarily picked up in the same decibel level, but I believe there's language, the plainly audible language. So can you describe how that applies to the situation that we're discussing right now?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. I wanted to address that. We do have, it is both. There's a general prohibition against sound that is plainly audible within a dwelling unit within the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. Plainly audible is described as either understanding the spoken word. This all applies to, it's not just human speaking, but it's sound producing devices. So it's something that's amplified, stereo, radio, things like that, and musical instruments. But the description of plainly audible is if you can understand the words, or if you can get the rhythm. And if you can and that is what is most commonly used in an enforcement case where you're dealing with those bass levels, because then often the decibels don't translate because it's at that lower level. But so frequently, enforcement is pursued on a plainly audible. If you're in a dwelling unit, can you make out the music? Can you understand the words, or can you hear that rhythm, or feel that rhythm, which is often the case. But then at the same time, there are specific prohibitions, and within there are the decibel levels, which if it's within a noise-sensitive unit, it's 45 at night, and in a commercial area, 55 at night. But within this UGB, it's laid out a little bit differently, because a violation occurs if the maximum permissible levels, which I just stated, are exceeded by 10 additional decibels at any moment. That's a violation. If it's exceeded by, the maximum levels are exceeded by 5 decibels for a total of more than 1 minute but less than 5 minutes in a 10-minute period, that's a violation. Or if it exceeds those levels, the 45, 55, within a cumulative total of 5 minutes within a 10-minute period. So it's not just, if it's a one singular event, it must exceed by 10 what the maximum levels are. If it's if it's less time for a shorter period, or if it's a longer period, it exceeds that level. So
let's distinguish between a blast of noise or an ongoing kind of noise.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So the next question that I had, and thank you, Bruce, for that. The next question that I had was around efforts to mediate. So maybe Mr. Call, to start with you, because I recall that you said that there had been discussions where you had gone over and made some requests to turn it down, to just turn the bass to a particular level. Can you describe, what efforts you've made to try to resolve, to be a good neighbor and to try to resolve this amicably?
Right. Well, going back to the 2001, we made several attempts to try to mitigate it before we went to trial. On this case, I did make contact with Don White Jr., who is that's the son of Don White Sr., and I was able to speak to him once and talked about the noise, and he said he'd speak with his father. Our managers have spoke with the owner of Remy's. We have had even to the point where we received one of his cards, a phone number on it. He says, at any time, if any of our music bothers your people, make sure they call me. The number now on the card was disconnected. I ended up talking to him approximately 3.5 months ago. I searched him down through Facebook, through his personal site, which had a phone number that I tried to call, and it was him. And I spoke to him for a short period of time on the phone and asked, I've talked to him about my situation. And in speaking to him at that time, his comment was, well, I have a club, and what am I going to do? If I turn the music down, I'm not going to have any customers. What do you want me to do? And at that time, I just kind of stopped the conversation at that time because I knew it wasn't going to go any farther. That's where we've been at as far as being a good neighbor. And we've made the attempts.
And Sergeant Baldridge, in your enforcement experiences are general, I mean, oftentimes you try to do neighbor-to-neighbor mediation types of things. Have there been efforts through the sheriff's office to try to mediate this?
Absolutely, through code enforcement, and we also have regular correspondence with the Wyants as well as Remy's nightclub. And again, it's not, I don't think, a deliberate act by either business to want to be a bad neighbor to each other. I think they're both trying to run a business, and that's where we come at an impasse here with the ordinance. And so that's where we kind of sit. Every time that we receive a complaint, we contact Mr. Wyant and say, sir, we've received another complaint. Can you please contact Remy's for us and let them know that we're back here? We are aware that Remy's nightclub had made some type of improvements to the building, as well as they tried to attempt to keep people from exiting the back door and or having the bands warm up into the alleyway, which was one of the major complaints. So I think there's been on both sides of the parties some minor portions to try to mitigate their circumstances, but we are at this point of impasse.
Thank you. Those were my questions.
All right. Any others? All right. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
Linda 9. Good morning.
Good morning. I have a similar problem, but I live outside the city limits and outside the urban growth boundary. Do you want me to name my problem?
Go ahead.
Okay, it's named the Hitching Post Bar and Grill. It's a little postage stamp building, and they play outside amplified music until 2. They're the only, well, there is a business next door where you can park your RV if you're not using it over the winter, storage, I guess you'd call that, and the tavern. And then the rest of us are residential, and there is a berry field, and Shriner's Iris Garden is close by. I have not approached them and asked them to turn down their music, but I have called code enforcement, and they are well aware of the hitching post. That's what they say. I mean, we're well aware of them, so I'm hoping you will consider your noise ordinance to be outside of the urban growth area as well as inside.
All right, Linda, obviously this is outside of what we're looking at today, but we'll look into it and see what.
Okay, thank you.
I have a feeling the theme is the same. Should say the rhythm. All right, Peggy Vaughn.
Good morning, Commissioners. I presently am staying at the Phoenix RV Park in Salem, and I must say my husband and I get very little rest. We are pretty much sleep deprived. My husband, we have a contract with the National Weather Service where he does upper air research and releases a balloon at 4 o'clock in the morning every day, or almost every day. And he gets up for work and leaves at 3. And when he steps out that door, it's still going on so loud, he can't get rest. There are times in the parking lot of the Remy's nightclub, there's bottles breaking. They've moved there. Not only are they practicing to warm up in the alleyway or in that parking lot, after 3, it's still so loud. They bring their musicians outside with their horn section, and they're going at it with the horns, and the glass is breaking, and partying outside on the parking lot. But and it's just bad. It's so loud, and it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, sometimes Sunday, the whole weekend. And there are times, holidays, it's not just those days. And they start 8, sometimes 9, and it goes on till 3. Even my husband says he's on days off, he can't rest, and we're so tired, and he gets up and works on the computer, and it's on till 4 even in the morning, and it's just hard. We're just tired. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question?
Oh, go ahead.
Peggy?
Yes,
I
sir.
have a question for you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair.
Sure.
So, how long have you been staying at the RV park, Peggy?
8 years now.
Okay. And whereabouts is your RV located in the park?
We're located in the southwest corner, just on the other, in the very corner where the nightclub is, on the other side of the fence.
Okay.
We're located right there, and it's, we've considered him moving to another spot so he can get rest, and we don't want to leave the park. We love the park. It's a beautiful park. We have a lot of friends there, but it doesn't matter. There are other people in the center of the park that are complaining. They can hear it from there. And in the area across from me, on the little road across from me, in the spaces in that area, there will be overnighters that come in, and I'll greet them in the morning, and they'll say hi, and they're on their way for their next adventure, and they tell me that they couldn't get any sleep, and this is horrible, and they're never going to come back. And I say, and I have to apologize.
Thank you. Thank you
so
for
bad.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
David Osborne.
Good morning. My name is David Osborne, and I'm also a resident of the Phoenix RV Park in Salem, Oregon. As a matter of interest, the space that we're in is immediately between Mrs. Vaughn's space and the nightclub. So I'm perhaps a little
excuse me, would you bring the microphone a little closer? I have trouble hearing you. Just pull it right up close.
Okay, is that better?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. We chose the Phoenix RV Park because it satisfies our needs in that it's clean and well maintained. It's a very comfortable place to stay and very convenient, so it satisfies everything that we need. But last year and so far this year, we miss about always 2 and sometimes 3 nights a week that we don't get to enjoy the surroundings. We have to close the windows, have to run the air conditioner to drown out the noise. We can't sleep. It sometimes goes on as late as 3 in the morning. And if something doesn't come up to alleviate this, then we'll be among those that are looking for another place to stay. I appreciate the fact that Remy's is apparently a successful business, and that's an admirable thing in today's society, that a man can build a business like that. But I feel like he needs to address the adverse impact that his business is having on the lifestyle and the quality of life of his neighbors. And that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Val Wiseman.
Hello, good morning. We're one of the managers at the park, so I am at the front desk, so I do take a lot of the impact from the overnighters that stay and the different people in the park. I have had people come and say they will not stay with us again for the simple fact of the noise level. It was just about a month ago, we had a lady come in that was actually blind and stay with us and came out of her rig at 3 in the morning, thought she was being invaded by the sounds of the music that was coming, and she wasn't in the back. We put her over to the side, hoping that it wouldn't reach that point, and she was very, very upset. We can't rent those back spaces. I do, in our conversations when we are coming with reservations, I do let them know that there is noise back there by a bar and give them the option of staying. They usually choose not to. If that's our only choice of spaces or sites to rent out, then we've had people actually leave because that they just aren't going to listen to that or not get a night's sleep.
All right. Questions or comments?
Anything?
And thank you.
Okay.
Barb Albright.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm a resident. I've been a resident at Phoenix RV Park since August of 2012, and have worked there in the office since November of 2012. And as a resident, we hear that noise, and we're up toward the opposite end of the park. There's nights that we'll be watching TV, Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, 10:30, maybe watching the news, and we'll hear, it sounds like a car with a really loud stereo that's pulled up next to you, and boom, 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 and we turn the TV down, and it's the nightclub. My husband and I have both resorted to putting earplugs in on those nights, and we'll run a fan if it's winter time, just for the white noise, or air conditioning in the summer. And then, of course, working in the office, I hear it. I work Sunday, Monday, Tuesdays, and have people come in and, for the last over a year, complaining about the noise. What are you going to do about it? What can we do about it? What's Todd doing about it? Threatening to move to another park where, they say we came here for peace and quiet, and a lot of them are retired. We had a couple that were in their 80s that it was affecting his heart, the noise. His wife would come in and say, we lay there and we try to get to sleep before it starts on weekend nights, but about 10:30 it starts up, and she says we feel it, before we hear it, and then it'll stop for a little bit and they'll just go back to sleep, and it starts up and wakes them again. So we moved them toward the front of the park, but they since have left, and we have people threatened. Yeah, and when we make reservations, there's a few spots back there where we just lose revenue. The park will be full, but we don't rent those sites because we know we'll hear about it the next morning. Or a couple of the spots that we have rented, we'll check before, people will come in, they've got part-time, maybe they're going to have a 6-month job in Salem. And I'll always ask them, will you be here on the weekends? Because like recently there was a man whose family was in Madras, and he was going to be here, and he said, no, I'm gone on the weekends. Oh, good. Then I could rent that spot to him in good conscience, back there, and told him about it. He says, no, it won't bother me, I won't be here. But it's just a problem, and we work so hard, and Todd puts a lot into a nice park, and it's a really clean, nice park, but that's a real problem.
All right. Questions? Thank you. Thank you. And Judy Howard.
Good morning. I can't really add a whole lot more other than the fact that I am 4 rows back, and I hear it in the late night evenings usually Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So that's all I can add. It's very annoying.
All right, thank you. Now we have 2 people that signed up, not specifying, but I think they're going to be opposition. I'm going to start with Carlos Navarro. Go ahead, Bruce, you have something?
Sorry to jump in, Mr. Chair. I just want to correct, I misspoke, and when I was reading the chart a moment ago, I want to correct that. Even though for situations where you're dealing with base levels and we frequently apply that plainly audible language. Given the chart, I went across incorrectly on the chart. The maximum levels for commercial to commercial are 70 and 65. 65 decibels at night would be the level that would apply here within the chart that we have within the existing code. I indicated 60-55 when I was up here previously. I just want to clarify that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Carlos, if you give your name and address, please.
Yes, my name is Carlos Navarro. I'm the manager for Remy's Nightclub, 3180 Lancaster Drive, Northeast. When I first started working for Remy's, the only person I talked to on the phone is, I don't remember who his name was. He never told me. He said he was a resident of the RV park. Each night, well, on the weekends, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday sometimes, I get a call that the bass is just a little bit too high. So what I do is, once the band is playing, I go to the line where the RV divides our property. And to tell you the truth, it is not very loud. You could barely hear the bass. So I don't know where the decibels come in that play. The young lady was up here saying that she was 4 rows back. I just don't know what to say. We try not to bother anyone around us. There's some apartments across the way too, and we have no complaints from them. It's just the park. If they have any questions, I'll talk to the owner and give him my phone number, so he could talk to me, so we could work something out here. I think he said our landlord is at the beginning of the building and we're further back. So we're not pretty close to that fence line. I just hope we could just figure something out with the noise level here.
All right, questions or comments? Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner, excuse me.
Thank you, Carlos. How long have you been the manager there?
I've been there for like about a year.
So just anybody else in your business ever been contacted that you know of?
No, nobody. Just this one person kept calling my boss and he just hands them to me. A resident. That's it. That's the only one.
So follow up if I may. So when you say keeps calling your boss?
Yeah, he calls my boss to try to keep it down, and I try to talk to the young man, and he just hangs up on me, mad. I try to explain to him that the bass is not very loud, but I mean you can still hear the bass, but it's not loud. The mids and highs, you can't even hear what they're saying. So
follow up if I may. Who's your boss, Carlos?
Joel.
Is he here today?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything else?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So has Sergeant Baldridge talked to you?
No, nobody.
Never? Sergeant Baldridge?
Thank you, Commissioners. I don't know that I've ever spoken to this man personally. I certainly know that my staff has had contact with Remy's Nightclub. I think it's important that Remy's hear some of the police reports that I have in front of me, if the Commissioners don't mind. And this is documented, audible hearing of the bass by police officers. And here's one. I arrived at the park and by the complainant's trailer, approximately 100 yards to the north of the nightclub's location. I could clearly hear loud music and heavy bass percussion vibrating my vehicle. I contacted the complainant, who was aware of the hearing regarding the club. I mean, this is ongoing. We have had complainants from the apartment complex. I have a report in here from a mom and a child who is not getting sleep as a result and is suffering in school. So I think it's important that we are all good neighbors to each other, and that we all start to mitigate this and get this under control.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could just say, I think, sir, your credibility with me is not very high right now.
Okay.
And denial means that there's a problem means that no one's going to try to solve the problem. Generally, if you go through a 12-step program or whatever, the first step is that you actually acknowledge there's a problem. So I can see why if people are contacting you and you're just saying, well, denying there's a problem, you're never going to get to a solution.
Right.
So to come here before us today and suggest that it's not loud and that there is no problem creates the same reaction to me, that I don't have confidence that you're actually going to make a good faith effort to solve the problem, which actually makes me want to pass the ordinance more so that there are teeth. So I'm just giving you my opinion about your testimony.
Yeah, well, this is my first time that I've talked to any officers.
We're not here to try to attack anybody.
Oh,
We're
no,
trying
no.
to get to the bottom of things. So, all right. Anything else you'd like to say?
No, that's it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And the last is Billy Dalto.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. I'm Billy Dalto. For the record, I'm an attorney here in Marion County, based in Salem. And I'm here to talk about this noise ordinance revision. And as a baseline matter, I sent some correspondence to the Commission yesterday. Hopefully that correspondence was received. And again, I won't go over the information that I've already submitted. But just as a recap, Commissioners, I represent White Pioneer Square 2 LLC and White Pioneer, who are the owner and landlord of the property where Remy's is located. And I'm very sorry to hear about the noise problems that the residents have been experiencing. It sounds like they have experienced those problems for a long time, and they're serious problems. And as I put on the record, at the last public hearing on this matter, or during public comment, noise is a really challenging thing to deal with. You experience real effects from noise. We've heard testimony about that, so we're very sorry about hearing about these serious problems. And frankly, I'm surprised by what I heard from Mr. Navarro's testimony. I mean, given the fact that there has been communication and regular communication with Marion County law enforcement and the club, I find the testimony very surprising. I understand Commissioner Carlson's perspective about that. Mr. Chair, just to correct things, I'm not here to support or oppose the ordinance as it's written. We don't have an objection to the ordinance as the proposal that you're going to consider today. The issue here is how the current noise ordinance affects landlords, and we are concerned that we are going to be held responsible for someone else's actions who, apparently by the testimony today, doesn't even acknowledge that this is a serious problem that these tenants have brought to bear. So I'm glad that they're here today, and we'll have some conversations with these folks going forward. But the point is, we're concerned that this ordinance, as it's currently written, irrespective of the amendment, it makes it unclear as to where the ultimate responsibility lies. And part of that is because of the way the ordinance itself reads this word permit, and we'll get to permit in a moment, but it's not really clear what permit means. And so as an example of that, the Marion County Sheriff's Office enforcement unit has provided information to us about their position on holding the property owner responsible for the situation with Remy's. I mean, I submitted an email on the record. I didn't want to do this last time, but no. Here's the information that we've received that's sort of put us on alert here. And the statement by, this person is called Laura Pekarik, who's a community resource officer, I presume in Sergeant Baldridge's section, says, this puts our client in the position to sustain any and all remedies, citations for confirmed violations on the property that have even those caused by a tenant. First of all, that's a sort of a legal conclusion that I think a fact finder, an administrative law judge, a hearings officer, somebody needs to make a legal determination on that. But I think that statement is plainly incorrect as well. So what we have here is a problem with what I perceive as what staff has communicated to the board about the interpretation of the ordinance and how the actual frontline folks that have to deal with the concerns on a daily basis are interpreting this. And I guess I consider this email as already having put the property owner on notice. And to Commissioner Cameron's point at the last hearing on this matter, there's a process. I think there was testimony that law enforcement would come, communicate the concerns, and they'll have a process to try to mitigate those concerns or address them. But I interpret this correspondence as already having put the property owner on notice. So why couldn't the sheriff's office come back next time with a citation if this is in fact how they're going to interpret this? So I think that means ultimately that it's the ordinance and the word permit is unfair to the property owner because it's not clear exactly what permit means. And I suspect that if the property owner is issued a violation based on this permit language, that we'll be back here to try to resolve a dispute about the application of that concept. I want to thank the commission for providing us last hearing a couple of weeks to work this through, which is exactly what I wanted, so I could sit down with county council to try to come up with some proposal for alternate language that would be acceptable for the county. So the county council, Mr. Armstrong, and I did meet. I felt that we were making progress. We considered some, first of all, the City of Salem's ordinance language. We consider other counties. We went through it together and sort of saw how other municipalities and counties approach this issue about noise ordinances. And I thought we were making some headway in terms of maybe mirroring or getting closer to what the City of Salem noise ordinance is. We heard some testimony from Mr. Armstrong that the Marion County noise ordinance was in line with the City of Salem noise ordinance. And I would say that, I've provided the language to you in the email, but I would say that the words are different and the meaning is different because the level of intent required in the City of Salem noise ordinance is higher than what the county requires. The county requires in their prohibition that it shall be unlawful for any person to produce or permit to be produced. Well, that's the Marion County. The City of Salem says it shall be unlawful for any person intentionally, knowingly, recklessly to create or permit or continue. So you can see the difference there is a mental state of intention or high knowledge that is different from what the county's proposal is, which is why we have a concern about this application to us, and which is why there seems to be a difference of opinion between what staff is telling you and how the county enforcement has told us they're going to enforce this. So I have provided suggested language to the commission, and as I said earlier, and I'll reiterate again, we don't oppose the proposed amendment here today. However, we would like you to consider amending the noise ordinance, the county noise ordinance, to better mirror what the City of Salem's noise ordinance is, because we think that City of Salem ordinance more clearly explains what it would take for what a violation by the property owner would constitute. I think it's a better and clearer ordinance and something that we can live with. And if the commission would be willing to consider that language, we would join arms and support the efforts that you're trying to accomplish here to help these folks with this noise problem. And we'll do our part. I'm not sure about the previous testimony of involvement, years and years ago with Don Wyant, et cetera, but I know that we're willing to do sound mitigation. The Wyants have explained to me that they will make investments in putting up sound barriers and things to try to do their part to help at this point. So I'd ask you to amend this current amendment before you and include the language that we request, or alternatively to consider that at another hearing. And I think at a minimum, since we do have this issue about what permit means, I would like to hear and respectfully request that the commission consider hearing from staff about this issue about permit and what the commission, what the county's legal team interprets permit to be. Because I had a discussion with Mr. Armstrong about this, but I want to make sure that discussion is on the record. So with that, I appreciate what you're doing here. I know that you've invested a lot of time, energy, and attention, and to try to help these folks with a real problem they're having. We don't want to stand in the way of that. We want to work with you, but we want to work together in a way that is fair for the property owner. So thank you.
Commissioner Carlson?
So, Mr. Dalto, thank you for coming today and last week, and thank you for your testimony. And I did make a note, or even before you said it, I want staff to come up and explain the permit language. And then also, I was made aware of Laura's email, and not after he sits down, maybe we can have you come up when staff comes back. And I think there are some issues around interpretation and consistency and that kind of thing that this email points out that we're going to resolve on an administrative level, and I just wanted to kind of make sure that I understood that, Bruce. There were some comments you made to me the other day, I think. So, but I did want, because I recognized there was a request, and I saw your email, to add some language. And the concern that I have in going beyond the narrow scope of what it is that we're doing today is that there are always, as you know, as a former legislator, unintended consequences for anything you do that applies not just to a single situation, but to a breadth of situations. So I have this for my closing comments, but I'll say it now. I am open to looking at additional issues later. I'm not necessarily open to delaying action on this particular issue now, but to open the window then to explore. I was never entirely satisfied with this noise ordinance when we first created it. It is an imperfect ordinance, as we know, and as people bring situations forward and as code enforcement deals with it, we have asked them to provide for us. Are we giving you the right tools in the toolbox? Is this working for people? We don't ever want code enforcement going to a situation that's a problem and saying, well, I'm sorry, we can't do anything, without coming back to the board and saying, okay, here are the series of problems that we're seeing. Can we do something about that? And we've made that clear. I'm looking at Kevin, because I've said that to him more than once, that, to the sheriff's office, that we do want that to happen. In this particular instance, though, I am looking at, and I'm not an attorney, but I'm sitting amidst several of them, and you are one, the word or. So when I was in the legislature, the word or means this or that or that. It doesn't mean that the prevalence of all three have to occur. Is that correct? So even if we were to add the words, because knowingly is already in our ordinance, so intentionally or recklessly, if we were to add that, Remy's could argue, based on their testimony today, that they did not know. Now, I said that wasn't completely credible to me because we have police reports and so on, but their testimony, if you take it at face value, they don't know. And up until you read the newspaper, you could argue you didn't know. But the thing is, at this point, there is no way anyone can argue that you don't know, right? Because we've had this public hearing. So this is going to apply to you even if we added the words intentionally or recklessly now, because one of the three elements is already present. So can you help me understand how you believe adding those two words is going to help your cause at this point?
Well, I think first of all, if we have a communication, thank you for the question, Commissioner Carlson. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the detail in which you study these issues. I know you work very hard at this. And so the issue about knowingly is if we have a conversation with Remy's, and we will, and have an explanation to them that we will not permit them to violate any county ordinance, and that they need to come back to us with their plan about how to comply with the county noise ordinance, then we have set an expectation that's backed up by our lease to explain what our expectations are of them. And we will tell them, do not violate this county noise ordinance. And if they go ahead and they do it again, do we really know that they're going to go and do that? I mean, it's really an intent and the level of participation that we have. So I realize these are magic words, and they are subject to interpretation in many different ways. But I can tell you that knowingly is not. It's all issue. What does is mean? You can always make an argument of of what knowingly means. And I think the intent of this intentionally, knowingly, recklessly, when taking it together in the full context of this is really, are we sort of actively involved in this violation, this noise ordinance? And I think after our efforts, there will be no question that the landlord is not wanting this to continue to occur.
Great, thank you. If I could just follow up. So when Sergeant Baldridge and staff, Bruce, Joe, come back up too, I think it would be useful for them to describe to you, we do have a code enforcement manual, we have protocols, and it's a stepped process with education being first, mediation being second, moving all the way up then to citations, but there are periods of time with each one. And so, again, Laura's email, I think, was jumping out to the last step and saying, under the law, you would be subject to this. Doesn't mean that that's going to happen tomorrow if we change this ordinance, but I want to make sure that we put that on the record and that Sergeant Baldridge talks about what that process would be.
We would welcome
and
that.
Certainly welcome Mr. Wyant and your accommodation of these concerns in terms of giving direction to Remy's, and then and it gives me a greater appreciation of what the concern is. So you're saying that after you've done everything that you can do to make sure this doesn't happen, if they continually violate it, you want it to be their responsibility because you've done all that you can do.
If I may, Commissioner Carlson, absolutely. I mean, we're not here to, protect anybody who's violating a county ordinance or any type of law. That's an issue that Remy's and the county must deal with directly. We just, we can only do what we can do. We're not out there at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday or Sunday morning, figuring out what's going on. We can only respond to what we've been told. I mean, I don't think anybody expects a landlord to be out there at all hours policing these things. So we would work with, Sergeant Baldridge or whomever the county would like us to work with, which is what I've done nothing but attempt to do that since you last saw me 2 weeks ago, and we'll continue to do that on behalf of the property owner so that we can work together. I will say that there was a meeting scheduled by Sergeant Baldridge that invited us and Remy's to participate. That meeting has apparently been canceled at this point, I guess because of this public hearing. It should be reinstated. We should meet, we should talk, and we should get clarification that we're starting from, not Ms. Pekarek's level here, but from ground zero. We're starting, from a zero playing field, and then we can, look forward.
All right. Anything else? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So now we will discuss it, but I would ask Bruce.
And we wanted Sergeant Baldridge also to come up and talk about
Please.
the code enforcement process.
And Joe, you might as well make yourself available too, just in case.
Right. And really, Bruce, I think a big part of it, given Mr. Dalto's final discussion here, hinges then on the word permit. So once they have worked with made their expectation known to the tenant, mitigated through noise, everything that they can do structurally, should the tenant continue to violate the ordinance if we pass this today, are they knowingly permitting it to happen at that time if they've made it clear in the lease and given instructions and so on? I think that's the big issue.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Commissioner. It, like everything, it's fact-driven. Ultimately, my choice of words in terms of the notice would be that any property owner is potentially responsible. And if a condition is ongoing and a landlord takes no action to fix the problem or stop it, then a landlord may be responsible. To me, permit means that, or indicates that somebody has the authority to allow or deny and the knowledge about something. So the use of the term permit is appropriate because it indicates that either a homeowner who has a guest, a nightclub who has a band present, or a property owner who has a tenant has the authority to prohibit unlawful behavior or noise violations. But it also indicates that somebody knows something, that knows that this violation is happening. As you noted, the language, the plainly audible language that most likely would apply here does include the term knowingly. it's unlawful to knowingly cause or permit sound to be produced by musical instrument, radio, and on.
So Bruce.
So there is the knowingly aspect already existing within the ordinance.
Right, but I'm not hearing you answer my question directly, and I want a direct answer. So you said it's all fact-driven, and you said that if a landlord knowingly or permitted, allowed this to happen, what you're hearing Mr. Dalto say is that the landlord would require through the lease for this not to occur and would mitigate structurally sound. So he's committing, so assuming that he follows through, the landlord, on those commitments, is that enough to say now they're not permitting it anymore?
If a landlord is taking reasonable efforts, is following up, and is pursuing to avoid a violation or to put the clamp down, then that would be enough. It's driven by what steps are taken, though.
Right,
And if no action is taken, then perhaps on the first violation of the noise ordinance or the noise code, code enforcement would be notifying and putting a landlord on notice, but would not be seeking issuing a citation to a landlord. But if second or third, if no action is taken, then we hold property owners responsible. And this is, and we need to, as I said, the same argument could conceivably be made by a nightclub owner who says, I didn't want the band to play at that loud of a level, and I told them not to. Well, then your only avenue, if the argument carries, our only enforcement avenue is against the band member who's turned up the music. But if you have repeated incidents, it's being carried on in this way where these noise violations occur. We need to be able to get at the venue, the nightclub or restaurant. We need to be able to go to the landlord and demand that steps be taken. And what's been the issue here is that there's no violation at this point in time.
I get that. But so I guess what I'm hearing you say, just to make sure I'm understanding this, is there needs to be some good faith, reasonable efforts on the part of the landlord to say that they are now not permitting it. And then if the tenant continues to operate in a manner that violates it, it is possible you would go back to the landlord and say, well, you put it in the lease that you're not supposed to do this, but they're still doing it. It's not working.
It's not good
so
enough.
You can't completely absolve the landlord of responsibility just by putting it in the lease, but once they're made aware by police reports or contact from the sheriff's office that the action is continuing, then there's an expectation that the landlord would follow through in enforcing the provisions of the lease. Is that?
That's correct.
Right, okay, so I just make sure I'm getting what you're saying. And Gloria looked like she wanted.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, if there's a violation or a citation issue, this is going to go to the Justice Court. So the Justice of the Peace would be the one that would be able to take information and would make the ruling as to whether something is permitted or not. So it's not going to be solely code enforcement. It's not going to be solely the issuance of the citation, but then there's a process for a landlord or a tenant or anyone to, challenge that citation or have a day in court and have that any evidence be brought forward or any mitigating steps they've taken into consideration.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so Bruce, just let me, when I sign a lease, typically there's a clause in there that says I have to obey all local laws, ordinances, etc. Or in a lease. So that would be the enforcement from a landlord standpoint. If I'm in violation of a local ordinance or a law, a landlord could come to me and say, now you are in violation of your lease, and I could start to take action to break that lease based on that clause in that lease. Would that be accurate?
That's exactly accurate.
Okay, so, and if I was doing that as a landlord, I would be showing good faith in trying to do what I'm supposed to do to comply with that ordinance, and typically that would be the direction that we would like to see if they had a tenant who continued over a period of time to violate a law or an ordinance. Simple.
That is the ultimate hammer, and for Marion County to go to a landlord, that is our ultimate hammer also. And as you said, if it's an ongoing issue, then we would expect a landlord to follow through, or we would hold the landlord accountable.
Okay.
I think that is a common provision in leases.
And Mr. Chair, if we could ask Sergeant Baldridge to just walk through in very high level briefly kind of the progression of enforcement actions that are taken. So assuming that we pass a change in the ordinance and now it actually is not lawful within the unincorporated areas of Marion County commercial within the UGB to have noise at a certain decibel level, there's a police call. Now that they're in violation, what happens?
Yeah, thank you, commissioners. So, what I think is we're sounding the alarms here, and one of the things I have to say to everyone in this room and to this commission is that code enforcement community relations is one of the best jobs in the sheriff's office because we actually get to make positive change in our community. We are not revenue-based, driven by citation. We are truly out there to make a difference within our community, where we want to make a positive impact to everybody around it. We want successful businesses. We want clean neighborhoods. We want graffiti-free neighborhoods. We want reasonable sound within these neighborhoods. That's what we're after. And the meeting set forth on the 10th. The reason why we postponed that meeting was because the ordinance and this was not passed, and the meeting was scheduled, and we will go right back into that same process. Our process, whenever we receive a complaint into our code enforcement division, is a letter is immediately sent to the offending parties, and if the offending party is found to be a renter, we send that same letter also with a small deviation in language to the landlord, and that's putting everybody on notice. As I'm sure Mr. Dalto has sent numerous letters in his career putting people on notice that this is about to happen. This is the same thing we do. They can sometimes be taken sternly, but it brings people to us, and that's when we get to use our skills and our ordinances and our mediation skills and starting to bring everything together and start to try to alleviate some of these problems in our community. It's after a lengthy process and discussion and numerous attempts to work out with all of the parties involved. It's only after that do we go to citation, because oftentimes citation is we're not even getting a remedy out of it. We're just going to court and assessing a fine, and then we're right back to step one. So we sit down as a team, we go back and have we exhausted everything here, guys? Have we done everything that we can with this, folks? Have we reached out to our community partners? Have we reached out to these landlords? Have we tried to really bring them together? And if the answer is yes, then we're going to citation. And hopefully that will bring some success to it, and sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. But even then, the problem's still not done, and we still have work to do, because our cases do not close until our problem is solved. All of these cases before me regarding the noise and all this stuff are still active cases within our department, and we will start to close them and bring them to light once we bring everybody back to the table, presuming that the board passes the noise ordinance. As far as starting at ground level with Mr. Dalto, of course, that's where we stand. We want to mitigate these issues. That is our bottom line, is we want to fix these problems. So I hope I answered your question.
All right. Anything else? Well, I haven't said very much, so I will here. I don't know. I always got to break things down to real basically. My real basic thing, and I have high sympathy. I should say for the record, I went out to the park about 6 months ago, met with Mr. Call. That's where I first become involved with it. In my way of thinking, I don't care what it is, but whatever your activities, they should be confined to your property and not be causing an annoyance anywhere else. I don't care if it's a truck stop, restaurant, factory. I don't care. You should confine your, so I'm highly sympathetic, and I'm just a heads up to staff to look out at the other issue that was brought up today outside of the urban growth area. But that's all I want. If you're going to make noise or produce smell, whatever it is, then keep it on your property. And that's so simple. There's been a loophole letting this go and bother people, especially these activities in the middle of the night. It's just unforgivable. And then to Billy, with all due respect, I want it that the property owners absolutely has a stake in this matter and does everything it could. I don't want county resources being spent settling neighborhood disputes. So if it can be taken at the level between the person who's benefiting from it in terms of landlord and the operator, manager, whatever, the tenant, that's where it should be settled, not when the county has to get involved in spite of the good efforts and whatever we've already lost. So there has to be ownership, involvement, responsibility. And, I wish I could read my own writing. I fall into this all the time. I have something. I don't want to get in disputes between kids, and that's what this feels like. And I can tell you at home, if they can't agree among themselves, then my answer won't be pleasant. So that's where I am. I was ready to pass this last time and stand ready to now.
Mr. Chair, I also want to say that I have been out to the RV park and tried to go to the restaurant yesterday. And by the way, Sergeant Baldridge, thank you for being out at the courthouse yesterday in the heat and having your guys do a great job on another subject. And I'm ready to, Mr. Chair, is it my motion to, my turn?
Well, I've lost order, but anybody who'd like to can.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to add, we are asking that this be adopted by emergency procedure.
Yes. So
and I don't know if you need to close the hearing.
Yes, we do.
We'll close the public.
So, Mr. Chair, I will move that we close the public hearing and that the ordinance is read twice for emergency purposes.
I'll second the motion. I'll make my comments about it after we have the next motion.
So it's been moved and seconded to have the chair read this by title only twice. I confess the title's kind of a funny one, but I'll read what we have. This chapter shall be known as we got to vote first. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion passes.
No, it's the
good.
back one.
Okay, so where is, I'm on Kaiser Rapids Park.
Lori, can you help me? I have 845010, the title, but you have something better. I like that better already. This is an ordinance amending and updating Marion County Chapter 8.45 relating to noise and declaring an emergency. And now on a second reading, an ordinance amending and updating the Marion Code Chapter 8.45 relating to noise and declaring an emergency. All right. And now for adoption of the ordinance.
Mr. Chair, I'll move the adoption of the ordinance amending the noise code provisions by emergency.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, it's moved and seconded to adopt the ordinance amending noise code provisions by emergency. Any further discussion?
Yes, I would like to make my
Opportunity.
comments. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone who came, and there were a lot of people who came that had to leave. Secondly, I just want to reiterate what I said earlier, that I don't think the noise ordinance is perfect, that there are probably ways that we can take a look at it. I'm open to exploring that in the future, but I do see a need to act now. Thirdly, this is a narrow change. It will have an impact on the situation that we've been hearing about today. It was precipitated by this situation, but it does apply to all businesses within the urban growth boundaries. So we need to recognize that the change that we're making will impact not just these businesses, but any business, particularly along Lancaster. And it is more equitable, I believe, because the businesses that are within the Salem city limits do have to abide by noise provisions after 10 o'clock. These businesses do not right now because our ordinance has not covered that up to this time. I am concerned. City of Salem doesn't always do things perfectly. I know we try to mirror their ordinances, but at the flip side, putting the words recklessly and intentionally in, I'll need to be convinced that is a good thing, because what it does in many ways is it takes the teeth out of working with the landlord unless they're doing something intentionally or something recklessly. I think that the landlord does need to be involved and not just withdraw from the situation. I said this last week, and I'll say it again here today, that my hope is that this gets resolved through mediation, that people are good neighbors and that they work together and that we don't have to move to a citation process. But my belief is that until there's a consequence, people have been unwilling up to this point to work through the mediation. And so now that there is a potential consequence. People will come to the table with greater intent to try to solve the problem. And last thing I'll say is that I am a person that has a great sensitivity to noise myself. I taught aerobics a long time ago. I used to be in aerobics rooms where the music was cranked up pretty loud. I don't know, I've actually become more sensitive to noise over the years. Usually that occurs when people listen to loud noise all the time. They stop hearing as well. I mean, it damages your ears. It's bad for people, really, to be in a small enclosed place with noise that's super loud. So I can appreciate the concerns that we heard here from people today about trying to sleep with that type of noise, trying to listen to television, trying to live a normal life when that's there. And it's very possible that the people that are around it all the time are no longer sensitive to it because they're around it so much. So I am, I guess, aware that different people have perceptions about what the loudness of noise is. My husband listens to TV much more loudly than I would prefer to have the television. He doesn't think it's loud, I do. But we do have objective standards in the ordinance that will be able to demonstrate whether or not this exceeds the levels that are allowable in Marion County. And it won't be just a matter of whether people perceive or think it's loud, but whether it really is loud with regard to decibel levels and the plainly audible standard. And so that I can support. And the last thing I would say is, just want to clarify for the record that it's my understanding, because the Sheriff's Office always says that there are no quotas in any aspect of the Sheriff's Office, right, in terms of revenue generation.
Correct.
We are all just trying to make our community more safe, right?
Correct, yes.
Right, very good. So thank you for that.
I might have one more comment, and I'm not trying to attack anybody either, but thinking of Carlos and your testimony, that would be a point where I think you could work with Sergeant Baldridge, find out very clearly what are the limits and awareness of the time, and come up to kind of maybe push it a little bit, but hopefully, we're not trying to put you out of business, understand what you're trying to do too. So define those limits, it'll work well for everybody, and that's what I do hope happens here. So anything else? All right, to call a question, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, motion passes. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Keep us posted. All right, the last thing, and I had it at one time. Billy, our meeting's still going on here a little bit. Places will be together in the next week. Missing anything else?
Nope.
All right. This is the 9th today, Wednesday, 12 to 1:30, SEDCOR Economic Business Forum, Broadway Commons, 1300 Broadway Street in Salem at 1:30 to 3. Today, Board of Commissioners, Chief Administrative Officers meeting, executive session if needed pursuant to ORS 192-660 A, B, F, and I. That'll be in the Silverton Conference Room, 555 Court Street Northeast in Salem. Then at 3:30 to 5, Economic Development Advisory Board, Commissioners Boardroom, 5th floor, 555 Court Street in Salem. Tomorrow morning, 7:30 to 9. Now, this is open to the public. We rarely see somebody there, but if you would like to come on an informal basis and visit, you're welcome. Kaiser Marion County Meeting, Sherry's Restaurant, 499. I just didn't do that right. 4998 River Road North in Kaiser. Then we start the county fair. I'm sure Commissioner Carlson want to say something more. We start with a fair tribute to veterans, as we had a little presentation about Oregon State Fairgrounds, Natural Resource Center, 2330 17th Street Northeast in Salem. Opening day reception at 5:30 to 7:30, again at the State Fairgrounds, 2330 17th. Friday morning, 8 o'clock to 10, Salem Chamber of Greeters at the Marion County Fair. And that's also at Oregon State Fairgrounds, 2330 17th Street Northeast. It's not on here. Cheesecake judging at 1 o'clock on Sunday, same location. Monday, 8:30 to 9, Commissioner's Calendar Review, Silverton Conference Room, 5th floor, 555 Court Street Northeast in Salem. Then it's Management Update at 9 to 11, same location. And then our next board session here in the Senator Hearing Room, first floor, Courthouse Square, 555 Court Street Northeast in Salem. And then just a couple of comments. Perhaps you'd say something about the fair first, and then I had a couple of things I wanted to bring up.
Well, the fair starts tomorrow. We've had a lot of people that have been working really hard to make it happen. Tammy Getch was on filming my program last night, How Are the Children, over at CCTV, and went through the highlights of it. So starts tomorrow, Thursday. Fair is open from 10 to 10 on Thursday, 10 to 11 Friday and Saturday, 10 to 6, closes at 6 on Sunday. Promotions, if you're a senior, 62 and over. I'm not quite there yet, but I think a few of us are there.
You just let it lay. Why do you have to say that every time?
You don't have to say anything. No one would know if you didn't speak up.
Like 2 weeks.
Right. Get in for free on Thursday. And also, there's another group that, veterans get in free for the Veterans Tribute on Thursday also. And what Tammy said last night is if you haven't been to one of those veterans organizations where they're giving out the passes, there'll actually be a table where you could show your documentation if you bring it to the fair, and you will get a veterans pass for you and your family to get in. Friday is Teen Day. The regular price for an adult ticket is $8. On Teen Day, teens get in for half price, which is $4. And I think kids in their awesome 3,000 t-shirts get in free on Friday as well. Saturday is Agriculture Day, and Friday night's the Henningsons, the country group. Saturday night's a rock tribute. Both of those entertainments are available just with the fair ticket. And then Sunday from 4 to 6, there is no charge for anyone to get in the fair the last 2 hours. So there's going to be all of your normal food and rides and FFA and 4-H exhibits and demonstrations, and then there's going to be car cruise-ins and skateboard demonstrations and dog flyball and you name it, it's going to happen out there. So it's a place to be, Oregon State Fairgrounds, and we hope anyone who's listening comes and participates in the fair sometime in the next 4 days.
Mr. Chair, I strongly suggest that anybody who goes tracks down Commissioner Brentano and has an ice cream and goes tours the pig barns.
See, you beat me to it. She talks about all the things that are great to her. She leaves out Bob's Hamburgers. I didn't even hear you mention it. That's important. Milkshakes, Kevin caught it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
They're good.
Ice cream
and you got to look
pig
at the pigs.
barns.
Have you ever gone in? Seriously. I knew it.
I have not seen
See,
the
well then we're going to go for a cruise this year.
All right, but Bob's, I am definitely going to get
All
a
right.
Bob's.
Now, two more serious ones. First of all, are you all aware, there's been a series of drownings in Marion County. Three different incidents at Scotts Mills and 2 or 3 at the North Fork. And I know the first hot weather and everybody's anxious, but gosh, that's got to stop. And we're going to be requested to do something. I'll bring it up in the future. Well, one idea was to have a phone available, and we need to talk about it, especially up the North Fork where cell phones don't work. So I'll be bringing that up. And then, Kevin, you mentioned it. I just want to say something, how pleased I am with how hard they work the justice courts. We combined that, had the opening just Tuesday, was it? Monday, Tuesday? And then they're right at it and went through a huge docket, and everybody worked hard. And
everybody's working together to try to minimize the stress. And I got back, I was out there at 1, and then I came back at around 3, and the line had disappeared. Air conditioning was working great, everybody was cool, and the sheriffs were out there, really did a great job.
I meant to thank them too.
Yeah, they really did a great job, and Jan just did a fantastic job getting everybody through her court, and the staff working a lot of hours right now.
I wondered why, we were set to open July 1st, and I know the holiday's in there, so I asked that today, why didn't it open? Why did we let it build up that much? And apparently there was still court in Staten on the 30th, so the combination couldn't happen for a couple days, and that's part. I'm not making excuses. I'm really more pleased that it went as well as it did, and I wanted to congratulate and thank those who worked so hard to make that happen.
This was kind of a blip, and
yeah, it was.
It's going to level out.
Some of the other tenants out there were a little stressed because of parking, and the sheriff just said, how many parking places? And they put cones down to
And save
reserve
their
spots for them. I mean, it was great that there was a great team effort.
Good.
And I know John always talks about breaking down the silos, and it definitely was one of those days where everybody was participating who could help. So, and I know staff in the building had a lot to do with that too.
Well, it is a gorgeous facility. Rich Duncan Construction did a nice job with the refurbishing, and the security is better, the storage space is better. I talked, well, you all were there too, and talked with the employees that have all moved together, and they were just very happy to be there. Asked them if it was any farther for them to go. A couple of them said, one said actually it was closer. The other one said it was a little bit farther, but it was a straighter shot, and she didn't mind it. So, I think we're doing
A
okay.
great central location, and we'll have consistency around the county, and that's what we're trying to attain, so just get through this week.
One other really important thing that's great for the citizens is that the court will be open on Tuesday nights.
Right.
And I know how I've had this issue with the DMV.
Tom McClellan, are you listening?
And being open when people can get there, and having evenings, which will help her off. She was talking about how she can set up trial dates, et cetera. That'll be really good.
Allow people to go to work and
Tuesday night, government building
Yeah, but next
open.
you'll be asking for board meetings in the evening. It's a whole nother subject.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, anything else legitimate this morning, afternoon, where are we, morning?
Stillborn.
All right, with that, we'll call this meeting adjourned.
Yeah, board meeting on Wednesday evenings, that'd be good. Then I could go back.
Yeah, I hear, now I get it.
Go back to my Wednesday morning routine.
I left my phone at home.